Welcome to Product Mastery Now. This is where we simplify the 7 knowledge areas for product mastery. These are the product management practices that help you elevate your influence and also build those products that your customers love. You'll find all 7 at productmasterynow.com. I'm Chad McAllister, a product management professor, practitioner, and your host. Now, more than half of B2B product launches fail to reach their financial goals. And you know how much work goes into creating a product. That's the last thing that you want to see happen, is to have it fail at launch. But with proper preparation, you can rest easy that the launch will be successful. To launch with confidence and avoid failure, you need to understand the launch code framework. And the creator of Launch Code is with us, James Whitman. He is the founder of Growth Guideposts and works with corporate leaders to help them make the most important decisions and achieve critical growth objectives. James has a proven track record of introducing dozens of products and services to the market, scaling organizations, and building high-performing teams. So let's jump in and learn to launch products confidently. Also, we did create a written article of everything we talk about, and you'll find that resource at productmasterynow.com/502.
How can you unlock your full potential as a product manager? We're sharing the product management insights you need. They are based on the 7 research-backed knowledge areas for product mastery. You'll learn to create products customers love, enhance your influence, and elevate your career. Welcome to Product Mastery Now, hosted by Dr. Chad McAllister, product management professor, practitioner, and your guide.
James, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Chad. Nice to be with you. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, glad to be part of this with you. I was delighted to find out about your book. If I had to choose a phase of work that I like in innovation, it would be that fuzzy front end when we're trying to figure out even what to do, right? And the launch part, I have less experience with throughout my career. I've certainly waded through it enough times, but I want to find out about launch code. And I thought a good place to start would be, how did this thing come into existence, your launch code framework?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I think that dynamic is really real and is really one of the drivers of why I chose to put the time into exploring this question particularly, that there is a lot of great work on innovation. Product management as a discipline has really created a whole body of really great sort of work and in writing. And this question of the handoff from product into sales and the go-to-market is a little bit of an afterthought. There's a couple of great books that talk about the design and the discovery process, and then we hand it to sales, and it's just like, what happens then? And I grew up on the sales part of the organization, and I worked in some organizations with some really awesome product sales handoff and integration, and we really delivered products on a regular basis really, really well. And like, I'd seen what excellence was. I've been part of that, built awesome kind of lifelong friends out of that journey. And I was like, wait a second, it doesn't always work well. In fact, the numbers you stated at the beginning, about half of B2B launches don't work out as planned. And there's a lot of energy. And, it's like the most strategic thing a company does. Mm-hmm. All of the kind of management theory is, 25% of a portfolio needs to be refreshed every year. A product portfolio needs to be refreshed. So you need to constantly be adding things if you want to sustain growth over time.
Right.
So in that mechanics it's hard. I mean, it's a handoff. It's got all kinds of different components. And that's really what I went at to explore. It was a series of kind of seeing it well and then being part of organizations where it didn't quite work, that sort of prompted the question, and then I can take you through a little bit of where we really took the exercise to look at what was true broadly across launches in terms of success and failure.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I always like to know what kind of, in a sense, research went into putting together these things, and what experiences went into that.
Absolutely. So we started, and we basically tried to take a look at what companies were very good at introducing new products. So we looked at public company data. We had a whole bunch of experiential, sort of personal and professional case studies that we were sort of starting with as the kind of initial deck of cards to kind of try to discern patterns around this. But we decided to take a really broad look. We looked Russell 2000, group of companies and tried to identify companies, B2B space, that had sustained growth over decades in terms of financial performance, and that the primary growth lever was introduction of new products, not M&A, not blockbuster single product, but sequentially adding in new products into the portfolio, new client sets for existing products, and doing that. And we created a list of about 65 companies that sort of stood out as, wow, these companies are really good at it. And then we tried to look over the wall and understand what they were doing differently in the organization.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like kind of like a Jim Collins good to great sort of approach, right? Find out who are those great companies that are good at doing introductions of new products that really see their growth because of new products, and what are they doing differently compared to others?
Absolutely. And what emerged and really what we cataloged in the launch framework, and launch is an acronym. I'll go through it quickly and we'll kind of break that down a little bit more, but it's listen to your clients, assess the opportunity, unify the team, navigate the launch, really the go-to-market motion, control the risks, and hone the process. And it really is best thought of, and these companies follow a flow that looks like this, that they're constantly introducing products, and that they've engineered across each one of those pieces the right sort of inputs, and that they've managed through the really common problems that emerge in each one of those areas.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I like that you were able to fit that to something that I have a chance of remembering, right? So the launch code, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I need these simple tools to help me keep track of things.
Yeah, mnemonic devices, memory aids, and that's the challenge. Is it's another framework. And it's a really useful one in that it tracks with organizations we've tested out in lots of different sectors and financial services and professional services spaces. And the cases that we cover point to different elements of it. But it's something that you can remember. And the vocabulary is really important as well. They're simple words, and they're understandable across different functions. So I was talking to someone about discovery the other day. And discovery, we kind of know what discovery is. We're talking to product managers, but in the sales team, discovery is a sales stage that has nothing to do with early customer exploration. So it's right there, and every word that we use across the organization is different. Every technology, you're in Jira, and this person's in HubSpot, and this person over there is in some other tool, and working on different cadences across different departments, sprints, sales quarters, financial closes. Everyone's kind of running a different sequence, cultures, ways of work. So there's just a lot of barriers for us to get clarity across and around the table. And that's, that's what we really tried to put together, is something that someone can follow these elements and remember it and adopt it and change and grow and kind of run this process more effectively.
Yeah. Well, I like where you started with the listen to your clients. Right. As you just said, discovery has different connotations. And a lot of times, especially as organizations grow, at least what I've seen, is discovery sometimes means, well, what can we do for the customer based on our capabilities, not necessarily a understanding of what clients or customers need right now. So that's the beginning of launch, the listen, the L. So take us through that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So in each one of the sections, we took a look at what are the common failure paths. And we, to protect the guilty, we've changed the names. We've generalized them around the common patterns of failure paths, anti-patterns, same kind of concept. And for client listening, they're really classic. And, every time I'm talking to product managers, I'm like, yeah, we do that. Yeah, that's happened. It's the, talking to too few clients. It's the sample bias. We're going to talk to the happiest clients. I've done this job. I know the role. We don't need to talk. I can speak on behalf of the client. And that, senior engineer, senior product manager who's now 3-4 years out of doing the job of the actual customer has a different perspective. The technology tools have changed. The kind of world, the job has changed. And when you're on the other side of the table, we have a tendency to think about things differently. Our ideas sound better when they're our ideas. I think
Yep.
So there's a whole bunch of listening problems that kind of happen in organizations. There's the single client chasing. that, the sales team is pounding their shoe on the table saying, we have to put in security features
Right.
or we're not going to get XYZ Fortune 100 company in the door. And you go chasing this and it's not a generalized need. So those are the typical, the often the frequent failure paths that present. And then we unpack, how to do this well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a series of lessons within that. And we try to lay out tools and a lot of stories and examples of companies that are really good at doing this. So Bloomberg, for example, really smart, sophisticated organization, does a lot of things well. They, for a lot of their financial services products, have the product leader, kind of person who sits on top of any given offering, is part of the product. I sort of explain that a little bit. So, if you're a customer of this financial services reporting tool, the salesperson had said, and once a year you'll have an opportunity to meet with the esteemed managing director of this offering and talk about critical priorities, and he'll share back a view of what's going on across the others in your role. So they've kind of embedded it into the selling, it's part of the value proposition. It's actually quite a valuable thing. This person at the center has a ton of insight because they're talking to a lot of other people who do this job.
Right.
And they bake that in. It also opens the door for a senior product manager to not have to figure out who they're going to go talk to or go knock on the door of sales and go, hey, may I please have a great client to talk to, which is often a barrier. So it kind of creates that direct relationship. Clients are much more deeply involved. And the listening practices we call out have elements of that. How do you tie back the service model and the sales motion in a way that it's easy to bring lessons? So another one on the sales team, and one of my soapboxes is indeed the sales team question, like why is sales not involved in this process more deeply? Why is sales not trusted? Why does sales do things that should break down trust? Unpacking those things and why the organization functions like that. So I heard from a lot of product managers around this question of listening and this relationship with sales is, well, I don't know how to talk to sales. I don't know how to get access to them. I heard from junior product managers, I'm kind of afraid of the sales guys. They talk really aggressively and they make a lot of money and they seem really tough and they have really strong opinions. Maybe I'm not going to go and have that conversation. So we talk about that sort of job to be done and suggest a practice called a sales cabinet. And
I'm sorry, a sales what?
A sales cabinet.
Okay.
So this is just a couple of senior salespeople who have been identified by the chief revenue officer. Because under the play there is, senior product manager goes to senior counterpart in sales and says, hey, I would like to create the sales council and identify a couple of your key salespeople to contribute to early product design and fill in the blanks, but engage them. For this, you've now given the chief revenue officer, the head of sales, this great opportunity for engagement with their senior team. They can kind of handpick a couple of people and say, hey, you've been picked for a special assignment, and pick the right people with the right profiles. And now you've kind of established a relationship, and it's up to the product leader to see how they're going to leverage that and how they're going to take those inputs. But it becomes a really nice fluid connectivity across the organization.
Okay. I liked how you did address some of the fears or statements you've gotten back right from product managers. And, my career path was, I guess, a blessing in the sense that I had a lot of sales experience unexpectedly, right? Had a responsibility to work with sales. And in this organization, they took product people out with them for us to have those kind of problem discussions, right? What kind of challenges are you facing? Where's our product letting you down? Let's understand something you're trying to get done, what you're trying to achieve, and see if there's something we can help you with there. And so that was kind of in place in the culture that was expected. And because of other experiences I had, I was able to build trust quickly with the sales team. And frankly, part of that trust, your sales cabinet idea, I think is really interesting to me, because part of that trust was simply lent by the senior vice president of sales, right? That basically said, Chad's a good guy. He's not going to mess up your relationship with your customers. Get him in there to talk, help introduce him. And it's not a sales conversation, right? This is a back to discovery, some sort of discovery discussion to understand what the customer needs more clearly, and making it having that senior level support that was the expectation helped enormously with that. Like, I don't have to be afraid of the salespeople because the organization's expecting this to happen.
Absolutely, yeah, and I mean, you're like so many parts of this. The culture, the leadership tone that's set, the amount of governance around some of the friction points in this that have been put in place drives the quality of these outcomes. And that sounds like an organization that had the right sort of alignment and recognized the opportunity and avoided those blind spots. There were leaders who created that dynamic. And that's I think it's an interesting, challenging one that we want to work in organizations where senior leadership is setting the right tone, but that isn't always the case. And a lot of the people that these handoffs and the sort of in between challenge that exists across launching new offerings falls back on the product manager, and they're the one who works upstream into engineering. And manages those challenges and those relationships, and then manages downstream into the sales organization, the commercial organization, all the way through to the product being operationally what it's supposed to. And it's this critical influence role. So laying out how they can take tools, really practical elements, and put those to work.
Yeah, really good. And it did make this more concrete for me where you started with the negatives. Right? What are the problems that we see in the organizations that don't do this well? Right? We everyone in product knows we're probably not talking to enough clients. Right? We're not having enough of those engaged. That tends to be more rare now than it used to be, maybe. And maybe where there's some bias in who we are talking to. Right? And so love that. So listen to clients, real important. I do want to try to get through as many as we can, so at least we understand the framework of the here. So the next one, the A in launch, is assess the opportunity.
Absolutely. So challenges there are, we're all subject to all kinds of cognitive biases. We often go into these discussions with a conflict orientation. You have an opinion, I have an opinion, and we're going to duke out our opinions. Kind of how we're taught to argue case, pro con type of positioning, and we have a ton of data to sort through. So like, how do you make sense of customer information and stuff out of your Salesforce, and like actual user data, and making sense of all that is really challenging in a complex organization. So assess is all about the practices to knock down as much of that bias as possible, to create cooperative, growth-oriented discussion and consideration of information, and then super, super importantly, to lay down the numbers. We think we're going to recruit, we're going to sell, we're going to welcome X number of clients by this date-specific targets, that then translates out across the navigate that we'll talk about in a little bit, and the control the risks and the honing the process. We're creating a motion that says, okay, this is how our launches need to perform. And it's learning over time, and it's getting better at that, but you lay it down then, because once you're out in the battle of keeping a product that maybe hasn't taken off, it's really hard to make a decision about how well we're doing. You got to set that down early. So that's way back in the assess phase. And there's a whole bunch of practices we lay out to do that and make sure that you break down the biases. So I'll run through. We'll keep kind of move on through a little bit through letters. Is that good?
I just want to ask you about those date-specific targets to make sure I'm following correctly. So we're not talking just about having a date for the launch of a new product or new product version, but also are you putting targets in for when we're going to have the data assessed for specific milestones that we're measuring at maybe a specific cadence for knowing are we reaching our growth targets or not?
Exactly.
Okay.
So what we're starting to do in that phase, it's about establishing the milestone metrics. Let's just use number of customers and number of customer demos that we're going to have date specific. That 3 months from now we will have completed 500 client demos and welcomed 75 clients from that group. That's clarity, and then 30 days after that. And in the navigate piece, where we really get into the planning, that those numbers come down to daily and weekly activities, and you really go into a sprint approach over a 60 or 90-day period. And that's just a very different up-tempo cadence. That's really the kinetic moments of launch, but that builds on the assessment, like the numbers. We think we're going to do this. This is what we're building our plan around.
Okay, very good. So we're listening to the client. We're assessing here to actually get ready to understand the opportunity, and on to
unify the
okay.
team. Critical component that is determinative in so many cases of how well launches perform. This really cuts right to the heart of the handoffs and the different cadences and vocabularies and ways of work that exist in each one of these parts of the organization, across engineering, product, sales, marketing, product marketing, operations, finance. Getting that right, thinking it through holistically, working on the trust issues, which are often product sales trust issues that need to get resolved, and the right kind of team built for this. And what we've seen, the most successful teams for launches are unified teams. They're squads, cross-functional squads that collectively take it. It's kind of what you were describing, being on the sales calls, co-located or co-slacked together on the project, concentrated time, kind of create the battlefield sort of dynamic of that intensity, and really having that happen. So that's unifying the team. And there's a lot of key challenges, and this is the spot where everyone's like, yeah, I can't trust sales. They'll say anything. No, I don't want to share my roadmap with sales because they're going to promise the clients everything. And sales is saying, did these product people even talk to a single client? What's going on here? So it's that. And I see you laughing, and I don't know if anyone has not had that experience in some shape or form.
Yeah. Not only will they promise the client anything, they will make a copy of the roadmap that you shared with sales and told them to only keep this internal and to give it to their clients. Now, I'm not overstating in some instances, but yes, there are opportunities for tension in this process.
Yes, indeed. Now, and the roadmap thing I think is really interesting because on one hand, if I'm a seller, I want to sell the vision of where the company is going and what's possible with my product in a sea of other offerings almost in any space, certainly in any technology space. There are just so many other similar, possibly great products that do similar things to my platform. I really need to be telling a story for the future that has to be credible. If you're a senior account exec for pick any large SaaS company, you're building multi-year relationships with senior clients. And you're building into the organization. I think it's true for smaller organizations as well. The kind of emerging smaller SaaS players, the great ones are building super deep relationships with clients. I was just listening to, I don't know if Jam Dev, they have a really interesting platform. Just watch their thing, and they've kind of like really gone deep into that kind of credible sort of relationship with their clients to bring clients into the center of their product in really credible ways.
And that's the value of your cross-functional squads, right? Is we need to be leaning on the strengths and experience of each function in that cross-functional team. And sales, I've been picking on sales a little bit to this. Sales brings a lot of strengths to help us better understand the context that they have more experience with than other people on that functional team will have, right? And even like things as you're talking about, we're trying to in some ways enamor the customer with a vision of where we're going, and that is aligned to where they are going as well. And one of the challenges might be, well, okay, your vision's not ready for us today. We're going to wait, and buy in later. Sales are really good at dealing with navigating those sort of instances, and we need to rely on every function's strength that's in that cross-functional squad.
Yeah. And often it means expecting more out of sales. And, because there are plenty of instances, and certainly in my research, the first topic was always people complaining about and telling some story of bad behavior from someone on the sales team. And it happens. It's a real issue. Again, that runs back to this culture question that organizations, oddly to me, tolerate ill behavior from sales because they're kind of beholden to the revenue or to what people do, and it ends up being super corrosive to organizations, and it limits the ability to grow over time. That you need salespeople who are vested in not just their commission that month, but the values of the company and the overall growth of the organization, and working well with peers and building relationships, doing all those things. And again, it's a major culture question.
It is, yeah. The organization needs to operate as a integrated system and not a collection of functions. And you do a lot of work to help organizations get there, because that's a key problem. Okay, so we got unify the team, and then you mentioned navigate a little bit earlier. Doing those daily, weekly activities to take the actions towards the milestones. What else should we know about navigate?
Navigate's about up-tempo, it's about cadence, it's about listening, again, is really one of the key lessons there, that we've set down really detailed metrics. We know what's going to happen. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be standing. We've had the dry run, and we go. And it should be a big deal for any company. There's going to be a squad, a little 4, 6, 8-person squad who's doing this launch. But I contend that it's the most important thing that the company does that day, regardless of what your function is, regardless how close to the launch process. But this is about the growth. This is the strategic imperative of the organization, is to grow in most cases. So if that's the case, this is the most important thing, because we're saying we're planting a meaningful seed. We're announcing in some public way. And we talk about, your navigation can be phase and slow launch, soft launches, and there's a whole bunch of different flavors of launch. It's not always a big bang, but the launch day, the day that you declare, you should create a little hoopla with it. You should have hyped it up with your clients that they know something is coming in the right appropriate ways for your product. Your team knows, and then it begins a period of time when the people who are on the launch team now are in launch mode. So creating that environment is really the key piece there.
Okay, very good. Navigate the launch. And then we're on to control the risks. Control the risks.
So this is the kind of if the failure paths of before weren't a little bit of a downer, there was a lot of risks, and we know about the risks. We're spending all this money. We're putting our reputation out there. We are committing ourselves to a product. There's a big tech company that's renowned for releasing offerings and then taking them back away. I know a lot of enterprise CTOs who will not buy this platform because of that, because we built a strategy around that tech. So if you promise something to a client, they expect it and they want it to, obviously to be supported going out into the future. So there's a whole bunch of risks. And this is about the risk management process. The big lesson is don't have it too set in concrete. Don't have your product box when you go to market. It has to have some approximation in it, either in the product form, in the pricing, in the way it's delivered, in the support model, kind of thinking holistically about the product and having that thing be loosely formed at the right level. Because the risks are just a whole bunch of unknowns in terms of how the market's going to react. Is a competitor doing something right at the same moment? Have you been able to create the right excitement? There's a lot of variables there. And the companies who get through this effectively is that they anticipate that. The built in, this thing is 60, 70, 80%. It's going to be very specific to a particular context. But how do they keep enough flexibility in that model and be listening from the first conversation? So it's creating a kind of a streamlined cadence within that, where we're sampling tranches of the market as we go out. We're not just saying to every part of the market, hello, we've got the new thing. We're like a comedian trying something out in a small club before they go on the road with it. Yeah. It's like, let me see how this works with a representative sample, because we don't want to make the mistake of just listening to our favorite customers or the customers who heard what we said and said, oh yeah, I'll take a meeting. We want to be very deliberate and release it, create A, B, C, and probably D and E groups, and try it on the A's and make sure that you see kind of where it performed, where it didn't perform. And then once you've kind of gotten enough yield out of that first set of conversations, move on to the second tranche, but with a slightly tweaked offering and positioning and kind of tweaking all the different elements. That's controlling it. And that's basically it, is you just stay in a mode that you have enough flexibility to adjust to things. And you're tightening that, and you're getting kind of greater certainty at kind of a key set of milestones. Again, tie back to assess. I've said after 5 client meetings, after 10, after 25, after 50, after 100 client meetings, I'm going to assess against a set of criteria and say, where's it going off? What our expectations were, and what can we do to improve that?
Yeah, really.
And that takes us right into hone. Yeah,
and real quick on the risks, because you did it as you described that you didn't go down like a traditional risk management approach that we learned from project management as a PMI, but there is a discipline within that focused around improvisation, which is very much what I heard you talk about, right? Where we're expecting the need to improvise as we're gaining information about the reality of our product offering hitting the marketplace, right? And what do we learn in response when customers interact with us, when perhaps competitors start taking notice of us? There might be other factors that change in the marketplace. And there's a sense of improvising in a controlled manner to take advantage of those challenges as they occur.
Absolutely. Okay. And in each one of the sections, we lay out a maturity model and the failure path of the ways not to do things. That's like a ding. And then there's a base advanced expert. And the risk register, kind of classic, let's catalog the risks and see how we can mitigate and then see what's residual. If you're not doing that, that's trouble. Like that should be in the machinery. But we see that as being just like, that's just a starting point. That's table stakes. It's a question of like, how do you go? Your improvisation is a big piece of that, and then the strategies that kind of allow you to get better at that risk management component.
Yeah. Okay. Really good. Okay. The H in launch is hone the process.
Hone the process. This is a continuous process, and we're building our organization to do all these things. So we depict it as a figure 8, and while you're honing, you're doing 2 things. You're honing the offering that you now have in the market and making it better on a daily basis. Wait, there's a comma missing. Wait a second. Clients call themselves operations and not delivery. Getting that fine tuning. Wait a second. It's got a bug. Getting all of that right. So you're honing the product and being really deliberate about it. You just wait a second. You're watching what's happening, kind of with usage. And then you're also improving the process of launching new products. So that's the swing back on the figure eight. And we're learning, we're seeing, how are we performing against our metrics? Because we're goal setting for the next product that's coming out. So we're really careful to look at, well, how's this thing performing? What's going on? What do we know about that element? And we're trying to reduce the variability in that data as much as possible, because we want to do things to kind of control the input. So in the selection of our salespeople, we want really consistent salespeople. We don't want the salespeople who are like hit it out of the park every time there's this kind of product, but in other areas they're a little bit off, so they're kind of uneven. Low performers tell us different stories, just like overachievers tell us a slightly different story. We want people who are like upper mid-tier performers, but consistency. And that just takes out the variables, so that I know that this seller kind of handles products in the same way. So there's no sort of, many sellers are better with a offering that sells to engineers than one that sells to accountants. You want to find people who can represent a range of different products.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Build out the right team. Okay, I like that. So we got launch code, and we're going to listen to our customers, assess the opportunity. The U is unify the team, navigate the launch. The C is control the risks, and finally H, hone the process. So really good. We'll talk more about where people can find out about that. But as listeners know, I like innovation quotes. A lot of our audience likes innovation quotes. I asked you to bring one to us and share what that means to you.
Okay, so great. This is from a product manager and thinker that I think really speaks really crisply and clearly on a number of different questions. Leah Tharan, I don't know if you've read any of her stuff, but it's growth is started internally as a strategic initiative, but hired operationally. And she's talking about a couple of different elements here, but this is I think she distills the question of what happens in this handoff we were talking about beforehand, where it's just sort of thrown over the wall to sales. We put a lot of attention and design into this strategic thing called growth and producing a new product and figuring out that do you say the fuzzy beginning? Is that how you describe it?
The fuzzy front end, yes, of innovation.
The fuzzy front end. So you've come out of the fuzzy front end. You've done really good, like Christensen level, ideation. You've really understood the jobs. You've really unpacked it. Double bow ties, all of that. And then somewhere down the line, we hire out a commercial team, and it's that sort of like big thinking piece gets lost in that. So it becomes operational. And talking to a lot of senior product leaders who have kind of figured out this partnership, they recognize the importance of getting the go-to-market motion right, and that it's not just an afterthought. It's probably more than half of the likelihood of success. Sort of our kind of looking at big data sets, McKinsey's done a bunch of work on this, that the go-to-market motion really does matter a great deal, and getting that piece right. But you haven't thought about those people in many cases as being strategic resources. They're the end of the line, they're the production plant, they're the sales team. So that's a quote that I think sums up a lot of important dynamics.
Very good. Yeah, and you underscored well there the importance of a effective go-to-market strategy, and the launch code gives us insights about building an effective strategy, something we can launch with confidence. For people that want to find out about the launch code, you do have the launch code book. Want to know about that, and also how people can find out about the work you're doing, or if they want to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So launchcodeproject.com is really where we've organized our work. Right now, it's pre-sale. If you want to buy an early copy of the book, it'll be available as a nice shiny hardcover and paperback, as well as audio and digital. So launchcodeproject.com. We will be really building that out. One of the things that's interesting about producing a book is it's the lesson of being dynamic and improvisational. A book is this very concrete product that doesn't have a lot of fluidity once you've physically printed it or uploaded it to the server. So we're going to keep and really view it launch code as the version 1.0. And as we learn and develop this set of practices and learn about other companies that are really great at doing this thing called launch, we'll be growing this body of knowledge. So launchcodeproject.com. And please get in touch with me there or on LinkedIn, and we'd love to have a conversation. And I think this question of the key handoffs, where do different functions find places of connection? And I think there's also this sort of a philosophical layer about like, why do the people who are involved in new things, new launches, new offerings, what drives them to that? It's kind of this little bit of an existential question of, why do the thing that is least likely to be successful? Right. Like what draws that to people? So it's a great conversation that I love having.
Really good. Okay, launchcodeproject.com, and we'll also put the link in the show notes for this for your LinkedIn profile. And listeners, a key reason why I wanted to bring James to you and talk about this today, I have great respect for the vice president who is in charge of product or maybe marketing and involved with launches and comes and tells us how they've done successful launches. But having insights across a number of companies who have successfully launched gives us new information, and there's an added richness there. And really glad you're going down this journey, James, and making this information better as time goes on, as you learn more from other companies as well. But you've already started with a great framework for us to pay attention to. So thanks for making the book available and for bringing us kind of an overview of what to expect.
Fantastic, Chad. Really great conversation. Look forward to talking more. And thanks for having me here. And always great to talk about what's working well.
Great. Yeah, really enjoyed you being part of this. And listeners, as you know, this podcast is something that I do to bring knowledge and information to the project management community. I also need to fund this to keep it going. I do that by providing training, online training that's available to product managers to help you get better grounded for the next step of your career, for people moving into innovation leadership as another program, and also for senior leaders who really need to understand their role in leading innovation and why that is different from leading operations in the organization. You'll find those resources at productmasterynow.com, and I hope you check that out, and because one of them will certainly prepare you for your next step of your career. Also, that article that we've created for you, this is a great resource for you to share the information that James provided with your colleagues in a written format. You'll find that resource at productmasterynow.com/502. And as always, everyone, keep innovating.
Thank you for listening to Product Mastery Now, where product leaders and managers gain product mastery through practical knowledge, influence, and confidence. By listening, you are becoming a product master, creating products customers love. Find additional resources at productmasterynow.com. Keep innovating.